Welcome to another episode of Technology in a Tent. We have a special guest today, Dimple Sahni, entrepreneur, investor, humanitarian, I don't even know, the list goes on and on. But tell us a little bit about yourself, where you've been, what you've done, what you're doing now, and then we'll get to some stories.
Great.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and thanks for this wonderful setup and the tea that's forthcoming.
Yes, good tea.
So I'm Dimple Sahni, and I immigrated here from India as a young girl when I was 6, and I grew up in the Midwest. So I came here with the hopes and dreams of any immigrant family to pursue my dreams and high education and ambition. And growing up, I was a bit of a quant jock, so I love numbers, I love analytics, and I used that to do an economics degree at the University of Chicago.
Cool.
And then went on to work on Wall Street at Goldman Sachs.
You too?
Yeah.
Okay.
You did too?
No, not me, but the fourth person that was on Wall Street and then ended up doing startups.
Yeah. So I think Wall Street is a great rite of passage, just like living in New York is a great rite of passage. And for a first-generation Indian girl who grew up in Minnesota, small town in Minnesota, I developed a really thick skin there. I developed my love of markets, my love of investing, and also my appetite for risk, which will be a common theme you'll see throughout my story.
Favorite game.
Yeah, so I worked on the trading floor all 4 years at Goldman Sachs. So that's when
You were a girl who immigrated from India, working on the trading floor in Wall Street.
Yes.
Were you the only one?
One of very few.
Right.
And certainly one of the very few of color.
Yeah, of course. Both color and girl.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think because I loved numbers and markets and I had a high appetite for risk and adrenaline, the trading floor was a great fit. And I have to say, I loved being one of the few women there. So
That's
I know
awesome.
I turned what could be perceived as a weakness into an advantage because people remember my name is different, the way I look is different, and then, of course, being a female trader.
That's the
Even if you don't know what you're doing, you have to exude confidence. Otherwise, people will take advantage of you.
What were you trading?
I traded fixed income securities, equities. I worked for a proprietary hedge fund internally at Goldman. So I traded futures, options, the whole spectrum.
And how long did that last?
I worked at Goldman until 1999. I transferred with them to the Bay Area during the tech boom, and I left to become a dot-com entrepreneur.
And we have our board, and what was that moment where you said, done with Goldman or financial or trading, and you're like, okay, I want to get down and dirty and be an entrepreneur? Like, what was that moment like? And
so working for Goldman Sachs when it was still private was very prestigious, and they dangled the partnership carrot in front of most of us. I transferred with the firm in 1998 when it was still private out to the Bay Area. But every day after the markets closed, we were trading all these stocks by these newly minted millionaires. And so we were like, wait a second, we can come up with a dot-com idea on our own. Every day after the market closed, we would exchange ideas. And one day, a colleague of mine at Goldman said, you know, my sister is a teacher, and she said, the schools are incredibly inefficient. We're teaching our kids how to use technology, but at the administrative levels, the schools don't embrace e-commerce in how they run their business practices. How do we change that? So we honed in on that idea, just a very simple problem from a teacher who was the relative of somebody I worked with at Goldman. And in 1999, when Goldman Sachs went public, after spending a year developing the idea, we left to go start this company called Epylon, EPYLON.com. And we help schools and governments do all their e-commerce online in a much more efficient way. We said if we can bring the efficiency of the internet and cost savings of e-commerce to these big, behemoth, bureaucratic organizations, we can save money and we can devote time and attention towards the kids and education where the money should be going.
And how long did you work on that?
We raised $50 million, which now as an investor I realize is a ridiculous amount of money, but at that time it was readily available. And I helped spearhead that fundraising. We spent it in a year and a half.
Wow.
Year and a half. It was impressive. We hired 180 people. Engineers were so expensive, just like they are today. And we ran out of cash. And then, of course, the markets turned in 2001. So one of our investors bought us for pennies on the dollar, just bought the assets, essentially. But it was a really good learning experience for me to be a founder, to build a culture, to make mistakes. We had 2 rounds of layoffs. That's one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. And I grew up a lot. I grew up more in 2 years in internet time than I did 4 years on Wall Street, being sheltered by just a big, behemoth Wall Street firm.
Okay, and then what was the next kind of project that you aligned yourself?
We sold our company in August of 2001, and then September 11th happened.
Wow.
So everyone's world was rocked, including my own. Yeah. And so I became a lot more introspective and said, what do I want to do next? None of us stayed with the company, which was now being absorbed by this big consulting firm. We wanted to stay in a smaller setup. So I applied to business school. And I moved back home with my parents and studied for the GMATs, applied to Wharton, applied to Harvard. Wow. And I met a professor at Harvard while I was applying who said, hey, you just raised money for your own company. Can you help me raise money for this company? I'm an investor in our native country in India. And it works in the clean tech space, so water and infrastructure. So I thought, okay, I'm not going to say no to a Harvard Business School professor. Sure. And it was the chance for me to go back to my native country without the crutch of my family and go back as a young, single, independent, professional working woman as opposed to summer vacations or family weddings.
Yeah. Lots of those, right?
Yeah, but I really wanted to establish my own identity there, So I deferred business school for a year and I lived in Delhi and I worked for this company helping them raise money. And that's where I really saw myself as an Indian American. That's where my passion for emerging markets and impact investing started. And when I came back, I went to Wharton Business School and I told everybody I want to be a social impact investor in emerging markets.
There's not that many of you guys out there, right?
Well, the field has grown.
Yeah, it's starting. Yeah. So I know a few, but so that was what year?
So now 2001 is when I applied to business school. 2002 is when I was in India because I deferred. 2003 is when I started Wharton Business School with the idea of being very clear at age 30 what I wanted to do.
I just turned 35 and I just figured it out. So you're 5 years ahead of me. It took me a while, but it's funny when that moment happens, right? All of a sudden you're like, that's it. And Christine disagreed with me because she says things keep changing. But for me, at least, this show and this path that I'm on, Peace in the Middle East, was always it. I didn't know what the vehicle was. And so it's funny because I'm kind of a social impact something, not maybe an investor. I thought I was going to be an investor.
Yeah.
So we were probably at that same spot, and you
took different paths.
Yeah, different paths because because I like numbers as well too.
Yeah.
Like 780 on the SAT and math and GMAT, like some insane score. And I was put in some special program, and I always loved numbers. And the only problem is I'm really bad with money. And so my wife knows this, and here I was trying to be an investor, like a VC, and it did not make sense.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it takes a special personality to really do that. And then now, with your focus now, the social component of it, I think it makes it even more difficult, right? Because
it is.
Tell me a little bit, how do you compare, being a social investor versus, traditional VC who's just hammering out investments in regular companies.
So going back to the point you made about that intuitive moment, for me, venture capital is an amalgamation of everything that I love. I love being entrepreneurial. In this way, I live through the entrepreneurs I'm investing in.
Sure.
I love risk. Now I'm taking calculated risk and a diversity of a portfolio as opposed to one company. And I love investing. So it felt like a really natural career progression. The social piece was something that I knew I wanted to do, but it was so nascent when I wanted to get into it in 2005. I initially thought maybe I want to work for the World Bank.
Yep.
They have a triple bottom line, environmental, social, and financial. I did a summer internship and realized, wow, this is not the right vehicle. It's too big of a behemoth.
Yep.
It's really bureaucratic, and they move so slow, and the money comes with strings attached. And I thought, I'm more wired towards a private sector model. So when I graduated, I got a fellowship, something called the Kauffman Fellowship, to do traditional venture capital.
Yep.
So I cut my teeth on traditional venture first because you have to learn the art of investing. And you learn it in mature industries like technology and healthcare. So I invested in technology since I was a dot-com entrepreneur. And I lived in New York for 2 years.
What was the first one?
The firm was called L Capital.
Oh, the first investment.
Oh, the first investment
Are they still around?
it's still around. It's a company called Y-Spry.
Uh-huh.
Y-Spry. It's a mobile RFID company.
Huh.
Yeah, in Irvine, California. They're still around.
Was it a good investment?
It was decent. I think they've had an acquisition offer for $25 million recently, but they haven't taken it yet.
Still have carry or equity or something?
No, because I left my firm after 2 years, and
that.
carry invests over 4 years. So I left right after my fellowship was done because I wanted to do emerging markets, and the firm I joined could only do U.S.-based investments. It was backed by the SBA, the U.S. Small Business Administration, and they said you can only contribute to economic development on U.S. soil.
Yeah, because I know I have friends like Kaufman, they're only U.S., Skoll, I think, is a little bit more global, but that seems to be an ongoing issue. It's either really philanthropical, where it's global, or just U.S. But you joined Omidyar for a while.
So after my fellowship, I moved over here, and I got the job through another Kaufman fellow who ran into Pierre Omidyar at the TED conference. And he said, I want to change the way I give. I want to hire people who are trained in VC because I want to be more astute about the way I give. So I moved out here in 2007 to work there, and I thought that was going to be my dream job, working for a billionaire who cares about making a difference. And I'm working in Silicon Valley, which is the epicenter of my industry. So I joined there and was heading up their India strategy. And the first deal I did there, I don't know if you want to get into the story now, or we can wait.
Sure. I mean, so the topic you picked for Lessons to Stories was first investment. So let's tell a story. I mean, we might as well roll with it. So.
Yeah. So I went there because I thought, this firm has an ethos of making a difference and empowering people. And Pierre loved microfinance. So, and that's, of course, about empowering female entrepreneurs, which I'm also a big proponent of. So the first deal I did there, which was representative of the type of work I did, was a company that built rural IT-enabled kiosks in villages. And villagers could come in and they could digitize their land records, collect their ration cards. It was essentially providing a hub for the government to provide their services out to the rural areas. And so we invested in that company about $10 million. We had other investors in it for $5 million. So the round was about $15 million. And it was the toughest deal I've done to date for several reasons. One, my first deal internationally and abroad. So working with our legal counsel, their legal counsel, speaking different languages, and trying to get them to do an American-style deal, an American-style term sheet. Just professionalize it a little bit. When we looked at their books, I mean, the due diligence phase was harrowing. But throughout our diligence process, we ended up replacing the CEO. We took the COO and put him in the CEO role, and made the current CEO an advisor. We recapped the company and revalued it because it had been overvalued in the last couple of rounds. And we basically built the entire infrastructure of the company again. And I took a board seat, was a lead investor with this new CEO. But I love the fact that it was impactful, using technology as a platform to affect people at the bottom of the pyramid and give them access to government services. Very cool. Still sort of a public sector spin and making that more efficient. Yeah. But that deal took us about 6 months to do.
6 months. Wow. And what were you thinking when it got done? You're like,
I was like, now I hope it goes well.
Yeah, right.
And I'm proud to say that the company just got acquired.
No way.
2 months ago.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so it's well after I've left Omidyar, but and the CEO now lives here in the Bay Area. He actually lives in my neighborhood.
Let's get him on the show. I want to hear. I want to hear his point of the story.
You know what? You should have him on your show. He's amazing. He's actually a young global leader. So he goes to Davos every year.
Awesome.
And he is now looking for his next entrepreneurial gig, and he wants to do it around. He wants to create a company around social integrity because he's worked in India, which is very corrupt and very inefficient, and he wants to devise a company that plays on people's social capital.
That's awesome.
So he's working through it. But yeah.
What's his name?
His name is Sriram.
Sriram, if you're watching this, or Dimple, maybe you can make the intro. We'd love to have you on the show and hear how painful that 6 months was trying to get that money. Okay, so let's fast forward a little bit. Omidyar, to me, obviously, is kind of near and dear. Pierre's Iranian, and I'm Iranian.
And I've met Pierre.
Okay.
I traveled with him on his plane to Bangladesh. We went to Brock because he loved microfinance. We traveled with him then to India, my native country, and I loved showing him India through my lens. I was the only Indian person on the investment team, so I wanted to show him a part of India that he normally wouldn't get to see. So we went into the slums, both in Dhaka in Bangladesh and also in Mumbai. He met amazing social entrepreneurs, and he's the one, after meeting Sriram on this Indian roadshow, that said, we have to do this deal. He and Sriram were simpatico. And so Pierre was my biggest champion in doing that deal.
Yeah, I mean, I would say Pierre is one of the biggest entrepreneurs, period. But the fact that he's Iranian, and obviously I'm a big eBay fan, and then Omidyar, I think what I like about it is it's this hybrid of philanthropy, investment, grants, and I know a lot of people that have been involved. Christine was just on the show.
Yeah,
and, she's a good friend. So it seems like a lot of people have gone through that.
The Emitter Network is also a rite of passage.
Right, exactly. That's what it is.
I joined them to get a flavor for impact investing and have a firm platform to stand on. And I think, those of us that have come and gone through Omidyar, we've taken our learnings from the mission and how it's set up to go and do other things. Christine went on to work at Intel Capital. She's doing more traditional venture. I recently started my own fund.
Yeah, I know. We're going to get to that because I try to do my fund and you know what? Actually, I take it back. We spent hundreds of hours in financials and decks and PPMs and blah, blah, blah. And I had 100 high net worth individuals and family officers, and I never pitched it because I realized that it was the right path that I'm on, but that's not the right vehicle. And that's the difference I'm saying. So, but I can tell you, it's not easy. So tell me, that's exactly what I wanted to get to. I wanted to get to the story of fundraising, and because your fund has a little funny, quirky twist to it. It's a little different. So tell us about the process of raising it, and what are you doing with the money, and how are you impacting entrepreneurs with this fund now, where you're writing the checks?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just fill in the gap. I left Omidyar about 3 years ago, and I've been working as an independent consultant, advising different types of investors and entrepreneurs who want to do emerging markets and impact. And recently, I met up with a friend from business school who said, hey, I left Google last year with two of my buddies to start a new type of social impact firm. We just pooled our own money to do some tiny investments, but we want to raise a proper fund. Would you join us full-time to help us do that? So Hattery is the name of the firm, and it's an early-stage venture firm and a design lab. So think of IDO for mobile and web meets venture capital.
Yeah, super cool.
And the idea was, traditional venture doesn't work in this really fast-moving economy where technology startups are really capital efficient and they move and change all the time. You don't need as much capital as you did before, and the speed at which you close deals and do deals is lightning quick, warp speed. But also, I think the old guard of venture capital, the Kleiner Perkins, the Sequoias, the gray-haired old white men, the way they provide advice and dispense advice is just different from how people of our generation do it. We're much more hands-on and much more involved. So the way our firm is set up is we have a team that's in place for the fund, the seed fund that's in place, and I'll be raising a larger fund for them. Our design lab is there filled with designers and engineers who we plucked from firms like IDEO, Frog Design, Google, who want to work on products for socially impactful companies. And then our portfolio companies, we have 8 of them right now. 6 of them sit in our office. So they get all of the attention that they need from our designers, our engineers, and from our business team. We give them marketing, PR advice. We also, interestingly, have an advocacy arm that sits there that helps push for tech startups on Capitol Hill. So we thought it's not enough to invest capital in a vacuum. How do you really provide technical assistance to startups and do it in a much more meaningful way than a typical accelerator where you just graduate batches of companies every 3 months? And then also, how do you work on the public policy angle? So we took a holistic approach to how do you get startup poised to be really, really successful.
Interesting.
So we're in a great space in Soma, and the challenge, to your point, starts now in raising the larger fund. So the seed fund was the 3 guys from Google literally putting all their retirement savings into it to bootstrap it.
That's amazing.
So I've joined them in the last month to help raise their first fund. And right now we're doing all the investment materials.
Do you want to use that?
Do you have some templates you can send me?
I really
I'm creating.
Seriously do.
I'm staying true to my banker background. I'm creating a data room where I can have like financials, portfolio company information, team information, and industry and investment materials. Nima, let's talk offline about that. I don't want to recreate the wheel, but if you have great templates, I'd love to use them.
Look, nobody said they were good or bad, but the people that helped me or gave them to me, Christine actually helped me.
Oh, perfect.
With one of them, but we did a lot of work, and what's funny is like I felt like it's gone to waste because it was literally hundreds of hours of work. Catherine, you know this. Catherine was my financial guru. So we spent a lot of time on that.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, I don't know if you know my background. I was at Founder Institute, kind of heading up business development with Deo, and I saw about 300 and something companies launch around the world. And, you know, it's not the typical accelerator model because it's, first of all, there's no money involved.
Yeah.
B, you don't get in based on an idea. You take a personality test. So really, really early stuff.
Yeah.
And then what I realized was that these services that you're now adding to the fund at that stage are 10 times more valuable than the 20 or 30 grand that you can get because literally the funny thing was that the people who were coming to the Institute, average age is 36. So these are senior executives or people who have graduated, you know, or done something significant, but they want to do their own thing, right? And they may even have their own money, but these ancillary kind of services and, you know, hardware product guys that can help with that and, you know, PR and advocate, all these things around it are really the ammunition that you need to get to the next level. So the fact that you do that, that was kind of our vision too. We wanted to be a fund incubator hybrid kind of slash where we could take these companies from the Middle East, teach them the culture, teach them how business is done, and then put in a little money, but really get them to the right place. You know,
absolutely.
Right. So I think what you're trying to do is bidirectional as well, and the fact that it's kind of impactful is awesome.
Yeah. And we have international companies. So we have one company from Spain. My partner, Luis, who went to business school with me, he's Latin American. So we have we're developing a presence in Latin America. I will bring the Asia angle. We haven't yet looked towards the Middle East because none of us has personal ties there. But Nima, I might be going fundraising there because I hear there's a lot of money.
Okay, there is, but I probably shouldn't say this, but it's slow, has strings attached, is brick and mortar, or really doesn't fully understand what seed investments, especially social impact seed investments are. So unless you probably have more experience and you've done funds and have been involved, but there's definitely a lot of money. And there's definitely mandates and people who believe it. So, you know, again, I never asked for the money, so I don't know. Maybe there is.
We want.
But I'll make some introductions.
That would be great. You know, we would like to go to places like Dubai, which is perceived to be flush with cash, to give people access to Silicon Valley exposure. You know, and if they have dispensable income and money that they can essentially take more risk with, why not?
Well,
because maybe they can't get into the Kleiners or the Sequoias or even like a 500 startups or a Y Combinator.
Well, half the things they don't even know exist.
And exactly.
I'll give you the example, Khalifa Fund, which is the Emirate entrepreneurial fund, it's $880 million.
Wow.
And their only mandate is to support entrepreneurship. The funny part is that I don't even really think they know. For example, they will only invest in companies where all the founders are Emirati, right? Which inherently creates a problem because then they don't know how to build a company, so they hire consultants and they burn through cash that they shouldn't have burned through.
Right.
So it's this kind of
seems like very efficient.
Yeah. So
we would like to invest in those entrepreneurs, bring them to our lab for 3 months, give them the blueprint of what made startup successful, and then port them back.
Okay. So you want to do a little project?
Yeah.
Live here, let's just hammer it out. And this is just the kind of thing that we like to do. So what we're doing is we're running an Indiegogo campaign to raise $250,000.
Okay.
We're going to basically sponsor 10 companies. We're partnering with UNoodle to have a competition. We're going to pick 10 companies and bring them here.
Okay.
They're going to end up presenting the product, being incubated at a co-working space. We're going to pay for them to take classes, learn, and educate. We're not going to invest. These are grants or to cover their expenses. But one of the ideas is that we want to get them to people who can help them. Right?
Yeah.
We want to connect the dots. We want to be that bridge. So if you'd like to somehow be involved in this process, and maybe one of the 10 is something that's interesting, and I can tell you right now, I've met 600, 700 companies there in the last year, and a good dozen of them fall exactly in the spot where you guys are.
Great.
And doing amazing things. I mean, mind-blowing things. And so to me, meeting these entrepreneurs, and I judged for Startup Weekend in Dubai last May, and that's where the whole thing started. So I did office hours for 60 teams in a tent, 20 minutes at a time.
I see you like working in tents.
That's where the idea kind of originated. But so it gave me this really interesting insight of how people think of entrepreneurship and these ideas. Okay, realistically, none of them were billion-dollar ideas, but there were some really amazing entrepreneurs, passionate, hungry, just hungry for change, and building really amazing things. And I think quite a few of them would fall in this perfect little description of someone who you could help and who you, I think, enjoy meeting.
Yeah, and I should say that right now half of our portfolio is impactful. The other half is more technology platforms like Twitter that could be used for impact. So I think we have changed the way we define impact too. Not everything has to be so direct.
Of course.
There's indirect impact as well. So I just want to clarify that.
Okay, so this is funny because people tell me, like, dude, peace in the Middle East, like, you're a dreamer. I'm like, you know what? I actually am hopeful because to me, peace may be that I can somehow help one entrepreneur create a business, lifestyle business, what we call here, that hires 5 people.
Yeah.
And creates livelihood and maybe peace of mind. I don't know, but not everything has to change the world. Not everything has to be a billion-dollar business. Sometimes it's about livelihood and about...
You can just change a life.
A life, exactly.
Right.
So that's what our mission is. And, wars and politics and religions, honestly, maybe that's not my place to change anything. But I can tell you the close to 2,000 entrepreneurs I've met in the last year, there's quite a few of them that have, A, become friends, B, have amazing ideas, and at the end of the day are even maybe a little bit more humble and passionate about entrepreneurship because it's about hope and it's about change for them and their family. And it's not, hey, I raised money from blah, 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 or, we built $1 billion business.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason why I'm doing all this, because I see that and I want to help people get there as quickly as possible. So that's what we're doing the show. We're translating into Arabic, and we're really want to build this bridge. So at one point or another, we can be a little mini bridge to you guys, because that's what this is about. And so I think if we can create a process that's efficient, you win, I win, everybody's happy. So.
Win-win.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We have a little thing that we do at the end of the show. It's called Old Rules.
Okay.
So instead of new rules, it's like, what's like your gangster rule that you live by, and it's like your foundation. Like mine. Okay, so it's 2 rules: your rule that you live by, and the rule that you'd like other people to live by. So mine is be on time and be on time. Like, I take pride in being on time. It's the German in me, and I really take it personal when people don't respect my time. And
was I on time today?
You were early.
I was early.
I think you were early. Yeah. You're not German though, so that's the German part of me. Yeah. What are your rules?
So a couple of things. One, I am a connector, and I am really generous with my own social capital and making introductions for professional reasons, personal reasons. I believe in building karma that way, and that goes back to my own culture.
It's a common theme on the show, by the way.
It is, okay.
It is, yeah.
So that is something I stand by, and in periods of transition in my life, I just believe that all of that comes back. So be generous with people, and then also work with high integrity and be very clear. I think when you work with developing countries or places where entrepreneurship is new, it's really easy to just fall back into the system that exists, but stay true to who you are and the integrity that you're coming into there with. That's really, really important.
Yeah, it's fun.
And even in the Valley, I would say, it's very competitive and it's very incestuous, but, be kind to people and maintain your integrity.
No, that's obviously it's a good lesson, philosophy for life, but especially in the ecosystem that we're in, it happens magically. You meet someone, they ask you for a favor, they do something, and you don't see them for years, and you still have this connection. It's a relationship, even if you're not hanging out or doing something.
Absolutely.
And that happens to me all the time, and I literally am a connector as well, and I talk to way too many people to be able to actually really stay in touch with them, but it seems like we're always, everyone, hey, how's it going? What's going on? And the ones that I do end up becoming closer friends with or doing business with, it's like that's what helps me execute on things I want to do. And,
Yeah.
and in the Middle East, it's still that cultural. It's a little different, and people are still learning that. And the funny part is, you know, whether in India or in the Middle East, the culture itself is very about sharing and spending time together.
And it's
family,
all about
friends.
relationships.
It's all about relationships.
Yeah.
But in business, it's been a little, I don't want to say corrupted, but tainted in a sense, because people will burn people over
Yeah.
small amounts of money or small things.
Yeah.
And here, we just don't really see that, you know. And
Yeah.
the concept of transparency and collaboration, those are things that I think overall the ecosystem in these developing markets need to learn, and people need to learn, and they need to kind of see how things are done here, and that's a big cornerstone of what makes the ecosystem work here.
Absolutely. I
did you
agree.
have a piece of baklava?
I didn't, but I've been eyeing
It
it.
is from Beirut. I tell people
Okay.
it costs more to ship it than to actually
Which one should I have?
I like these little ones here.
Okay.
But you're more than welcome to have.
Is it low fat and low
Of
cal?
course. It is sugar-free and fat-free.
Delicious.
Delicious. Okay.
Thank you.
Dimple, it was great having you on the show. I really
Thanks,
enjoyed
Nemo.
it.
This was
And,
fun.
I want to figure out a project or something that we could do and get you guys connected to the Middle East and to the entrepreneurs, because there's
I look forward to it.
We have a little something for you.
Oh.
It's a PITME t-shirt because we are bootstrapping and we need
Great.
marketing and advertising. So you seem to like wearing t-shirts, so
I do. I'm a t-shirt
support
girl.
it. And
Thank
when
you.
someone asks you what it says,
I'll just turn around.
yeah. And the funny thing is, I usually kind of switch back and forth because the original acronym is Peace in the Middle East, and I changed it because I realized peace through technology and peace and progress are the same thing.
Yeah.
So you can pick which one you want to use.
Okay.
So, awesome.
Thanks,
Thank you so
Nima.
much.
Appreciate the
it.
time.
Peace. Another episode at the end, and
Peace.
hope we see you next time. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, Dimple, thanks a lot for
Thanks,
being
Nima.
with us. Appreciate it.